Hi everyone, welcome to BlackHat, welcome to reNgine, an automated reconnaissance framework, and what's new in reNgine 1.0. I really appreciate you all being here, and thank you so much for joining into my talk. And also thanks to BlackHat team for having me here. This is my second time in BlackHat, and I'm really excited to be here. For the next 30 minutes or so, I'll be talking about the updates and enhancements in the reNgine 1.0, what are the new features and how to use them. If you're somebody new to reNgine and probably looking for installation instructions, I would recommend that you visit our official documentation and also you can watch my talk on BlackHat Europe 2020 on reNgine. So before we begin, a quick introduction about me. My name is Yogesh and I'm from Nepal. I'm a research engineer at TRG Research and Development, where my research focuses in building solutions for crime and terror. We at TRG, we build solutions to secure better life, and our solutions are focused on cyber intelligence and emergency response domain. A quick note, we also do have open positions on security research and cyber intelligence domain. So if you're interested, we also do have positions on remote. So if you're interested, I would recommend you to visit our career page. I also talk and train about IoT security, hardware hacking and mobile application security, and have previously spoken at conferences like BlackHat Europe, Open Source Summit, HitB are some of them. Apart from that, yes, I do build and maintain reNgine, and I guess that's pretty much about me. So let's move on to our talk. Before we begin talking about the new updates and new enhancements and reNgine, I guess it is very important that I give you a brief background on this tool and more about what exactly is Recon. Probably if you're into bug bounty or somebody who does a lot of web application penetration testing, I'm sure you must have heard about Recon, also called as reconnaissance. It's a very important phase, information gathering process for any target before you approach. You would want to know more about the target, right, before you approach. So this initial phase is called Recon. The information that is likely to be of interest are things like what all subdomain the particular target has, like what all are the endpoints. You might be interested in a few of those OSINT stuff, like gathering technologies, what technology is being used to build the website, and maybe gathering the email address. And you might be also interested if there are any known vulnerabilities, right? So this most often is pipeline. Like suppose you would want to gather the subdomains, gather endpoints on these subdomains recursively, I would say, and looking for IPs, looking for open ports, and whatever endpoint is identified, probably you would want to run vulnerability scanners like nuclei to find some juicy stuff. Depending on the hackers, the recon process does change. They have their own methodologies. Some may also have their own automation tools. Some hackers who are into bug bounty that I've met do not use any recon at all. This talk is not about whether you need recon or not. This is more of if you are doing recon, why do you need reNgine, and what reNgine offers you that the rest of the tools do not offer. So when I started doing bug bounty, a lot of things that I was doing were repeated stuff. And finding the right information to attack the right target was difficult for a very simple reason. The data was huge enough to get lost. So, and at times my requirements also were very specific. Like I want to see the screenshot of the website that has HTTP status 200 and that probably has admin, a dashboard keyword and title without even visiting the website. I wanted to quickly look at the screenshot if that is at all of interest to me before I even go for attacking. And to be honest, there are really great tools out there that I used in the past that also gave inspiration for reNgine, but required me to do a lot of filtering for the output. The results were not at all in the same place and many of the problems which we'll discuss in the coming slides. So I went on to create one for myself, a web-based framework that required very bare minimum setup, probably did not require much of playing around with Bash, and reNgine was the product of that. So it's in a web-based recon framework that uses concept of engine that drive these scans. These engines are based on YAML based configurations, and so if you were to have multiple of the engines, some responsible for doing port scan, some responsible for doing endpoint gathering and vulnerability scan, some responsible for doing the full scan, you can choose the required settings, required tools to get started. So that was the idea behind reNgine. And I started working on it. All I wanted was a fancy UI, a tabular structure of the recon data, and a very good correlation among the data gathered by the various tools. I also wanted a scheduler and that I could run the scans at any future date. So say run every midnight, probably run tomorrow exactly at 9 o'clock, right? And most importantly, I could run multiple scans in parallel. Those were my requirements. And that's how reNgine got started. So let's talk about what are the common problems with these recon tools out there. There are really great tools out there for recon, but most or all of them require you to have very good bash skills and file or folder organization skills. I'm sure you would agree that recon data is huge and organizing them, finding right exactly what you need, what you want is difficult. unless you have a badass bass or grep skills. In most of these amazing tools, one of the very important things missing is a correlation. Suppose, let me give you an example. Most of these tools output probably in a txt file. They output gathered subdomains in one file, the IP addresses in the other txt file, and the found ports in the other txt file. Or probably if you're using tools like Nabu, they might give you IPs and open ports in the same file. So depending on the tool, it's a different file, right? And at times you would want to look for results or query like, hey, I want to filter all the subdomain that has this IP address. Either you have a very good greping skill or you lose track of the recon data. It's very difficult to find out all the websites that are associated with one particular IP address. And also, how about I want to know all the subdomains that has port 22 open? How about that? And also probably something like, hey, I want to list all the subdomain that has port 80 open and uses technology as PSP and has admin on the page title. So one more example. How about showing me all the screenshots that has SMTP as a service running? This for sure will take you a long time to query. The other major issue is, since recon data is huge, most experienced hackers know by their instinct what exactly they are looking for and where exactly they should be looking. This does not hold true for inexperienced hackers. You would still manually go through a lot of recon data, and for targets like Facebook, it's gonna take ages. If we have something like data visualization, I'm sure finding the right recon data, right exactly that I'm looking for, would be very easy. And also establishing the relationship between the recon data helps you to make sense. Like suppose you always have a target. These targets do have subdomains, and these subdomains are going to have IP or either endpoints associated with them. So the IPs further are going to be associated with the open ports. The endpoints are going to be associated with the vulnerabilities maybe. If we were to establish the relationship between this recon data, it would be a lot easier to find exactly what you're looking for. If you see the chart here, this is exactly the relationship that I'm looking for. Suppose you want to know how many vulnerabilities does hello.example.com subdomain has. These visualizations would make a lot of sense and a lot easy to figure out. The other major issue with all the recon framework is that there is no any sort of data analysis. So when I say data analysis, how about when you're doing the recon on facebook.com and realize that there are 100,000 subdomains? How about the tool suggest you based on keyword like admin, cPanel, dashboard, and label them as interesting subdomains? That would be super easy and interesting, as in interesting, right? So also because recon data is always changing, new subdomains appear. Some of these subdomains are no longer existent. Similarly with endpoints, some endpoints may appear newly discovered in the scan. So how would you compare these changes and how would you keep a track of them? It is for sure difficult. So reNgine tries to solve majority of these problems. While reNgine also has its own shortcomings, it also does bridge a lot of gap in the recon process. So the first version of reNgine came exactly a year back. That is when we had a first major release, and this came with a very basic recon, a very basic scan engine. No YAML configurations were used. It only had a few couple of checkbox and buttons to choose what you wanted to perform. But it did a very great job in filtering the recon data, and the response from community was very impressive. If I remember, the very first release of reNgine, it was very basic in nature. It allowed you to just add the targets, scan, and not even choose the tools. No YAML based configurations, and notifications were limited only to Slack. It was very basic in nature. And then after a couple of months, probably in November, I guess it was in BlackHat Europe 2020, we had a second major release. This second major release, we introduced a fully automated end-to-end reconnaissance. So it was right from subdomain gathering to vulnerability scan. It was fully automated. And we also introduced YAML-based scan engines, so you could choose what tools you want to run, what are the settings that you want to configure in those tools. So it was mostly based on the YAML. The engines were mostly dependent on the YAML-based. And also we brought Nuclei. Nuclei does an amazing job in finding out the common vulnerabilities in these endpoints. So we introduced the Nuclei as well. And more of the focus was on nice and intuitive UI. And more focus was in building the correlation between the data gathered by the various data source, various tools. I think we also introduced a couple of cool features like out of scope options and many more. One of the very important things that we released was searching across all the recon data. So if you have like 100 targets and you want to search among the 100 targets, we also had that. It was a global search. And the other impressive feature that we released back then was we had powerful search queries across the endpoints, subdomains, and vulnerability scan results. So when I say powerful search queries, it was more like natural queries you could write. So things like http_status equals to 200 and content length greater than 560 and title equals to dashboard. So these kind of things. We had operators like less than, greater than, and or not. These operators were used so you could combine your query data and then get exactly what you're looking for. This was available for your subdomains, endpoints, and your vulnerabilities as. And today we are announcing reNgine 1.0. It's a lot more powerful than what you had seen, a lot more deeper correlations, a lot more new cool features that we're gonna see each of them. So the very first feature I think that I should be talking about is a deeper correlation. When I say deeper correlation, it's an ability to build a deeper relationship between your subdomain, IP address, and then open ports. You have endpoints, right? So subdomains to endpoints to vulnerabilities, subdomains to your OSINT to users, employees, and exposed credentials, right? So when I say deeper correlation, it's like suppose at times you want to find out, you got an IP address and you have a huge Recon data and you want to find out, hey, I want to find out all the subdomains that are associated with this particular IP address. Or you found out port number 80 was open, probably the MySQL port was open, and you want to find out, hey, I want to find out all the subdomains that has MySQL port open. So what reNgine does now is that you could click on each of these IP address, you could click on each of these ports and get exactly what you're looking for. You can query from IP address, you can query from your ports, you can query from the subdomains, you can even query from technologies. You can find out things like, hey, I want to list all the subdomains that has technology as Apache used. I want to list all the subdomains that has PHP as a technology. So you can do that. Now you have a deeper correlations between your data and you can query reverse as well, as I said. So IP to subdomains, port number to IPs, IPs to subdomains. This deeper relationship has been worked upon a lot, and we're going to see the demo on it. So when I say deeper correlation, as I said earlier, it's the relationship between the various Recon data components. So what reNgine tries to do is that it tries to build up the relationship between these various Recon data components. Like suppose from subdomain, it builds a relationship to your IP, and from IP, it builds a relationship to your ports. So this way, you can query all the ports that the subdomain is using. Also, you can query all the subdomains that are using that particular port. On the very left, you see is the IP address. So you have 21 IP addresses that are associated with the opusop.cn. And then you come back here, there are 97 discovered ports for this opusop.cn. And then you have this technology. If there are more technologies like this, you would find out more of them here. You can click on one of these and then find out how many ports are open. So once you hover it here, it will let you know how many ports are open. So let's click here. You get to see this particular IP address has 4 ports open, and the ports are here. The description also is given. And you click on the subdomains, this particular IP address is associated with this subdomain. So if it is associated with multiple subdomains, you get to see that here as well. Suppose if you see here, this particular IP address has all of these 97 ports open, right? If you go to subdomains here, you also get to see which all subdomain are associated with this particular IP address. So similarly, it works for the discovered ports as well. One of the interesting things that I added here in the discovered ports is that now your ports are not only recognized by your port number, we also have the description of the port numbers. Like suppose what's 443, it's HTTPS, right? So once you hover it here, it's the HTTP protocol over TLS or SSL, right? It's very easy for you to figure out what's running, what is the service running there. And all the ports that are highlighted with red are uncommon ports. So once you click here, you get to see which all IP addresses has this 1029 port open. So this 1029 is open on this particular IP address, and 1029 is associated with these many subdomains as well. So similarly, let's see, pick up randomly probably 37 times. So this is associated with this particular IP address, and same, I think it's the same port. Let's see MySQL. So MySQL again here. Let's see 80. So if you see 80 is associated with these many IP addresses, and if you see the subdomain, these all are the subdomains that is using this particular port number 80. So that's how it works. You have all these technologies, and once you hover, you can easily figure out which how many of the subdomains use that particular technology. If you see here, 136 of the subdomains use this technology. Similarly, you get to see AWS is being used by 4 subdomains, and it's very easy. So you click on Envoy and you get to see all the subdomains that uses that technology. You click on basics, you get to, once it's loading, so it pops up, and all of the subdomains that uses basic as a technology, right? So similar with the React, so it's very easy to figure out. So let's go to the subdomains here. Now here also is the same thing. So you get to see all the technologies that are being used. You click on any of these technologies and it will figure out how many of the subdomains, how many of the endpoints, either subdomains are using. And what's interesting is that if any subdomains are interesting, which we're going to talk later in the slides, It also shows that this is an interesting subdomain because there was this particular word called dashboard. And the relationship is not only for your subdomains, your IPs and ports, but this also holds true for your endpoints, subdomains, and vulnerabilities as well. So suppose if you want to figure out, hey, I want to know all the subdomains, I want to know all the endpoints associated with one particular subdomain. You can very well do that from here. So let's go for this sd.oposub.cn. When you click here, it has 11 endpoints, right? When you click here, you get to see all of the endpoints. Obviously, all these are associated with sd.oposub.in. Similarly, when we go for oposub.cn, there are 8 endpoints. So all of these are associated with them. And then let's go down. You can figure out the same thing. So 164 endpoints were associated with this particular subdomain. And with vulnerabilities, if you look, you'll get a badge here depending on the severity. Like suppose there is one high severity vulnerability on this particular subdomain. So you click here and you get to see what exactly is the vulnerability. Same thing with endpoints. If you see that particular endpoint is associated with oposub.cn. So this is the kind of relationship that's being built here. The other major feature that we worked on is a Recon data visualization. Recon data visualization is a representation of your relationship between your subdomains, IPs, endpoints, ports, vulnerabilities, any OSINT data in a format like tree structure. The reason why I choose to build this is because most often Recon data are hierarchical data. I decided to visualize them in a tree diagram. So if you see on the top right corner, you have a target called stripe.com. It has 2 scan results that have been found out. One of them is a subdomains and the other is OSINT. If you click on one of these nodes, it takes you to the further node, and then you again have emails, dork, and then meta info. So, and from meta info, you have usernames, and from usernames, you have this very good hierarchical data structure. The reason why I decided is because it's very simple. It's very easy to find out and identify what exactly you are looking for. Let's have a look at the other image. So if you see here, you have a target called hackerone.com, and especially with your colorful representation of these nodes, it's very easy to identify what exactly you are looking for. Suppose, let's say the green ones are the HTTP status 200, the right ones are the HTTP status 404, not found, and the yellow ones are the redirection. So you click on one of these nodes and then it takes you to the further node. Like suppose the one that we have meta-sta.hackerone.com. It has 4 different nodes that are IPs, endpoints, technologies, and screenshots. So if you were to click on technologies, you would find out what all technologies this particular subdomain was using. Similarly, you go to the endpoints, any endpoints that are associated with that would be listed here. So let's have a live demo on the Recon visualization, and let me go to one of these recently completed scans. This one, you need to click on the visualization. It's loading. So now your hackerone.com has one node which is called subdomain. Clicking further here, you will get more nodes, and what's interesting is the color code helps you identify what exactly is the status of the subdomain. Suppose you have the legend here as well. So the green ones are the one that are HTTP status 200, red ones are 400 something, and 300 status is your yellow color. That's redirection. And I think this is the same color that we have used across the entire project in reNgine. So let's click on one of these docs.hackerone.com, and you have these 4 nodes that appear. One of them is IP. Clicking on the IP will give you further 4 different IPs that are associated here, and if you click one of these, you'll get to see what are the ports that are open, right? Same thing with endpoints and technologies. So this docs.hackerone.com is using GitHub, Ruby on Rails, React, JS, Deliver, this kind of technologies. You also get to see the screenshot directly from here. When you click here, this is how the screenshot appears. And also, if you have done the OSINT, you can click on this OSINT, and then you also get to see all of this. You click on emails, these are the emails associated with hackerone.com. Similarly, dorks. So you click on employees. So these all are the people associated with that. And you can also expand all the nodes. So this will help you visualize what's exactly is happening. So this particular subdomain has these many IP addresses, and they do have these many ports. So you can click and expand all the nodes and contract them as well. So that was all for your Recon data visualization. Let's move into grouping and tagging the targets. So this was one of the most requested features on GitHub. Many people wanted to tag their targets into an organization. This is, I think, a really cool feature. What reNgine allows you to do is that it allows you to also tag these different targets into one particular organization. If you were to go to HackerOne and then find out the Oppo is a program, you would know that Oppo has different subdomains into that targets, like oppo.cn, oppo.com, oppo.opposhop.cn. So similarly, one particular organization, one particular program, or one particular target may have multiple domains associated with it. Now to add any organization, you can click on add organization and give the name OPPO, give there some description, and you can select all these targets. You can select multiple of them, oppo.com, oppo.cn, oppo.cn, yeah. So click on the add organization. When you click here, now you can scan the entire organization. You can also schedule the organization scan, but now we're going to scan the entire organization. Click here, select the engine that you want to do. Once you click and start scan, it's going to scan the entire targets associated with the Oppo, like opposoft.cn, oppo.com, and oppo.cn. Now let's click on only subdomain and click and start scan. So now you see all the 3 scans I started. Now the other fun fact is that you can click on filters and then scan filter only the results that are associated with the organization Oppo. You can filter only the results that are associated with HackerOne. The other feature that I worked on was interesting subdomains. This, as I said earlier, if you're doing the scan, if you were to do the recon on facebook.com and it has 100,000 subdomains, finding out the interesting domains would be pretty difficult. So what reNgine allows you to do that is it allows you to choose your own custom keywords, things like admin, cpanel, dashboards. These are by default. You can also add few of your keywords, and then what it allows you to do that is it allows you to choose where do you want to look for, whether you want to look that particular keyword in page title, whether you want to look that keyword in subdomain. You also can place in conditional operators, like it's an interesting subdomain only if the HTTP status is 200. You can do that as well. So let me show you how this works. So when you go to scan engine and then click on interesting lookup, you by default it comes, as I said, with admin, FTP, and cpanel. These are the keywords that it looks for to notify you if there are any interesting subdomains. Now what happens is that you can add your own custom keywords. Okay, for me phpMyAdmin is an interesting subdomain. For me it could be something else also. So what happens is that let's go back to one of these scans. Right now if you see press.stripe.com is not an interesting subdomain, rather you see these are the interesting subdomains. The reason is because that has a keyword called dashboard, which is by default keyword in reNgine. So I'm going to add one keyword here which is called press. Now click on update lookup. So you'll see here now press is an interesting subdomain. Not just here, you have a different section for all the interesting subdomains. So all the interesting subdomains are displayed here. The first one that you see is our press.stripe.com, right? So similarly, all these dashboards that you see here, it's very easy for you to figure out. And you see this also has reported on admin panel that it has, which is HTTP status 301. What happens is that you could place a conditional lookup. So interesting keyword is an interesting keyword for you only when it's HTTP status 200. So right now we have 11 interesting subdomains, right? So what happens when I click here? Update. So let's refresh. So we only have now 7. The reason is because now none of those condition matches the HTTP status 300. It's at 200. And when interesting subdomains are found, you also get notification on a notification channel, like suppose Slack, your Telegram, or probably your Discord as well. So if you see here in Tesla, we found 3 interesting subdomains that were dashboard APIs, right? So here also if you come, it also sends you back if it finds out any interesting subdomains in Tesla in Discord as well. So across the notification channels, you would get all these notifications for interesting subdomains. So the other major changes that we're bringing in reNgine is the recon data changes. So as I said, recon data is changing. For targets like facebook.com, new subdomains are added. Frequently, subdomains are decommissioned. So what happens is that it was very difficult to keep a track of all these subdomain changes, endpoint changes, any removal, any decommissioned subdomains, or any new additions, right? Now beginning from reNgine 1.0, we bring the subdomain changes as a feature. This also applies to endpoints. So if reNgine identifies any new subdomains or sees any subdomain has been removed in the recent scan, it's going to notify you. This also send you notifications on your Slack, Discord, Telegram, wherever you require it to be. It's going to send you if there are any subdomain changes. Recon data changes works by comparing the last 2 scans. So if we were to go here in the scan history and check for these 2 opposub.cn, if you see here, now it had discovered 5,560 endpoints, while in the earlier scan it had discovered 5,591. So let's see what exactly had happened. If you click on the summary view, you get to see the endpoints that were added, the endpoints that were removed, and you can also sort them. So if you see here, all these are the endpoints that were newly discovered. While you go back here, these are the endpoints that were all removed. This works the same for your subdomains as well. Let me show you one of them. So it works the similar on your subdomain as well. So if you see, stripe.com earlier had 306 subdomains and later it discovered 305. So if we were to click here, we would know that one subdomain was removed, that was revoke.stripe.com. So that was discovered just in the last scan, while in the newer scan it was no longer. So reNgine will notify you if to your notification channel as well if any new subdomain changes has happened, any new addition has happened. If you see here in the Tesla target tesla.com, it discovered one of the new subdomains, and it's going to notify you on your notification channel as well. The other major upgrade we are bringing to reNgine 1.0 is that we are bringing in OSINT features and the OSINT capabilities. The information that reNgine is going to look is employee gathering. It's going to gather all the employees associated with that particular target. It is going to discover all the email addresses that are associated with that particular target. And then it is also going to find out the exposed credentials on those discovered email address. And then now we also bring in the DORC capabilities. You can write your custom DORCs. You can use the default DORCs. We have things like Stack Overflow, third-party websites, social media, project management websites, code sharing websites, and then configuration files, Jenkins, a lot of them. So these are by default DORCs. You can add a custom DORC and then use them. And then we also brought in something like a discovered metadata. This discovered metadata, what it does is that it goes and finds out all the PDF documents, and then from there it identifies the users, the metadata, the software that are being used, the operating system that are being used in that particular target. So these are the OSINT features as of now. We are going to add new features, add new options in the OSINT in the coming days. Now for OSINT, you have to go to scan engines and then turn on this option OSINT, and then if you come to the YAML based configuration, you have this discover. What all do you want to discover? Emails, meta infos, employees, and what all DORCs that you want to do on that particular target. So all these are by default. You can also have a custom DORCs, which is in our documentation. So for OSINT, if you have done the OSINT scan, this tab will automatically appear here. You click on the OSINT and then you see if it has discovered any employees or people associated with stripe.com, it's going to be listed here with that designation. Right now it hasn't. And then it also discovers the email addresses associated with the target. So if you see right now we have 39 discovered email address, out of which 11 has exposed credentials and the passwords is also given here. So reNgine does that using the PondDB database. And also reNgine looks for the discovered metadata. It looks in the PDF what kind of software that has been used, the user that created that particular PDF, those information. And if you come to DORC data, you also have these DORC categories. So it found out results based on these 4 categories right now. You click on cloud buckets, you have all these buckets here. Project management, so these are the project management website that it looked for. So if you were to do the employees or people associated with hackathon.com, this is how it's going to look like. So these are the people associated with hackathon, and these are the designations. The other interesting feature that we're bringing into reNgine, and I think it's going to be super helpful, is the proxy support. So when you're doing the Recon, I'm sure you would have had HTTP status 429, right? So that's a firewall blocking you because you send too many requests. Most of these web servers, they do have a limitations on how many number of requests that you can send per minute. What reNgine allows you to do, that is, it allows you to use multiple proxies. You can add hundreds of proxies here, and reNgine is gonna pick one of them randomly and then initiate the scan. So this way you can do the like suppose this was the major problem in OSINT. Okay, when you're doing the crawling in the Google, when you're trying to do the dorking for multiple of these targets, you could quickly get banned. And I realized that proxy was something very important. So what reNgine does now is that you can enter hundreds of your proxies. reNgine picks one of them randomly. There is no sequence to that. It picks up one randomly, and then it uses to initiate the scans. Things for your DORC, things for your screenshot gathering, or probably gathering the endpoints, running the vulnerability scans using Nuclei. It uses proxy for that. It's going to be super helpful. You're likely to get more accurate, more better results. Now, beginning reNgine 1.0, we also have scan alert enhancements. That means now you would be able to send your scan related notifications directly to your Slack, Discord, and Telegram. So all these 3 are supported. What's interesting is that now you can choose what kind of notifications are to be sent to you. Like when new subdomains are found, if there is any new changes in the subdomains, if any subdomains are removed, you can get those notifications. If there is any interesting subdomains that has been found out, you can choose that to be sent. And then scan related updates like scan started, scan completed, those kind of notification. And also if any new vulnerabilities are found, you also get notifications on that. To enable the notifications, you need to go to settings and then click on notification settings. You'll find out many options. Right now we support 3. 2 of them are newly added. Discord and Telegram has been recently introduced. So if you click on Slack, just enable them, disable them, whatever you want. That documentation also is given here in the right corner. For Telegram, you would need both. And right now in the new changes will allow you to choose what kind of notification that you want to send, whether you want to send periodic updates like what happened to the scan is initiated or completed, those kind of notification. And also when it discovers the new interesting subdomains, it's going to notify you. You can choose that as well. And if any vulnerabilities has been found out, you can get notified for that also. Since the informational vulnerabilities count is huge, we are going to block that by default. You will not get any notification for informational vulnerabilities, but any other vulnerabilities you're going to get. And if you click take this option subdomain changes, the subdomain changes is gonna send you the notification only when there is a certain changes in the subdomain, like newly added subdomains or subdomain did not appear anymore, so you're gonna get notified for that. So the last one, upload scan results, you're gonna get notified with txt file for any scan related results, like suppose the list of all the subdomains, the list of all the IPs, the list of all the ports, any new subdomains, any subdomains that were not discovered, those information, those txt files will be sent to you. So let's go to the Discord. So this is how you'll receive. If you click here, you can download this txt file as well, but this is how you'll receive all the subdomains right on your Discord. This is going to be super helpful. And if any subdomains changes has been appeared, you also get notified for that. And here any interesting subdomains has been found out, reNgine is gonna notify you for that as well. The other cool feature that we brought into reNgine 1.0 is a screenshot gallery with filter. This allows you to view only the screenshots across all of your subdomains and then filter them with filtering like HTTP status, IP address, running services, ports, and technology. So here you'll get to see all of the screenshots related to that particular target. So this one is done for hackerone.com. So you get to see all of these screenshots right there. What's interesting is that you also get to filter according to the HTTP status. So I only want to see all the subdomain, all the screenshot that has HTTP status 302. So this is the only one, right? So I want all the 200 status one. So all the 200 status you're gonna see here. Similarly, you can do that filtering for IP address as well, any running services as well, even for ports and the interesting technology as well. So you want to see all the subdomain that all the screenshot that runs GitHub pages. So these all run GitHub pages as a technology. You can also do the full screen. You can also search these screenshots directly using the subdomain name. So suppose if docs is interesting for you, you want to look up something like a docs, you can directly search docs and it will be filtered. It's gonna be super helpful and easy for you to look at the huge amount of Recon data. So the last one on the major features is the pattern discovery using GF. So GF is a wrapper around the grape. It helps you find out the common patterns like suppose LFI, RFI, your SSTI, or even your XSS, right? So what reNgine does is that if you have enabled endpoint discovery, it will run GF patterns on top of that. You also have an option to upload a custom GF, or you can use the default one. If you're doing the endpoint gathering, it also makes sense for you to run the GF patterns on top of it to find out any juicy stuff, right? So to do that, all you have to do is go to your scan engine settings, and in the fetch URL you have to add GF patterns, and then whatever patterns that you're looking for. These are by default the default patterns given by GF. If you want to add on custom patterns, all you have to do is go to the settings and go to tool settings. Here you'll be able to upload any of your custom GF patterns, and that name, whatever name that you had given, you can come back in the scan engines and you can place it there. And once GF pattern is done, you'll get to see that in the URLs. Here you see 145 either patterns were found out, interesting extensions were found out. If we see, they are like robot.txts. Yeah, these are probably SQL injections, SSTA redirect ones. If you see here, these are the redirect ones, and then interesting parameters. So you see all of you get all of this here, and in the URLs, if you have run the GF patterns, you will also get to see the tags here. So this is associated with either. This also could be interesting params. This also could be LFI, redirect, SQLI, SSRF, SSTA, and XSS. All of these. I guess that is all in the major features. We do also have a lot many more minor features. I hope you go to our GitHub, install the new version of reNgine, send us the feedback. If you have any feature request, feel free to raise an issue on GitHub or directly contact to me on Twitter. I really appreciate if you can give us the valuable suggestions. Any feedbacks would be really welcomed. So I guess we have come towards the end of the talk. Thank you so much for coming in. If you do have any questions for me, please drop in those questions. Otherwise, thank you so much for coming in, and thank you for your time. Have a good day.